which was he broke his leg. I think the story is a very interesting story. He was crossing the road delivering a basket of groceries to a needy family, and a drunk driver came and hit him and broke his leg, and I guess in the hospital he contracted some sort of a bacteria or virus or whatever, mold, in his bone, and they call it osteomyelitis, and it never really heals, and it stayed there for so long, it was undiagnosed, turned into cancer, and he was still a very, very young man, and it turned out that he was very successful with making patents so he could afford his illness. And he actually became so good at fighting his own cancer that he began teaching other people to do the same thing. And eventually that's the business that he went into, and he formulated American Nutraceuticals, which is the local nutrition company, and they carry some formulas that have saved, you know, thousands and thousands of lives. They're mostly founded out of some Chinese healers that he had befriended at some point. So we call him Uncle Bill, and tonight's lecture is, well, this is my cartoon though, before we do that full thing. I have a brain tumor. I knew this would happen. It's all your fault. And the microwave says, no stupid piece of food. So, right, cancer is like, it's a bad word, right? When you hear the word cancer, and we're immediately, it provokes a certain emotional state in our body. And it is the leading cause of death between 1 and 65. You know, it's the most likely way that we'll pass. After 65, you start running into a lot more cardiovascular risks and so on. So it's something that we really want to pay a lot of attention to, and the numbers are staggeringly increasing due to a number of issues. So this talk is in memory to Uncle Bill. And Uncle Bill just recently passed away. He passed away in Cuba. He was in Cuba because he had a doctorate, an international doctorate degree. He wasn't a doctor here in the United States because he couldn't call himself one here, but anywhere else in the world he could. And he used to treat a lot of cancer patients in Cuba. And he just basically didn't feel good, went to the hospital and was dead within a couple hours. And it was the infection in his leg that finally got him. Real sad thing was his son was with him. His son went to go get some lunch from the hospital, came back, and his dad had passed. So basically all of Bill's, all of his info and all of his seminars and all of his textbooks and everything that he knew was passed on to me. And I am going to be able to give you just a little glimmer of that because there's so much, because Uncle Bill was the one that coined the term the cancer cascade. And if I can do anything besides just give you guys a glimpse into a different way of looking at this, then I've done my job tonight. George Washington, 100 years ago, he's on his deathbed. They call the leading doctors of the day to his bedside. And these leading doctors proceed to take 2 liters of blood from the president, and he dies. Now, he had a fever, and they felt that that was their remedy because the thought of the day was that high fever was from too much blood in the body. That's what they thought. And these are the leading doctors of that day, and that was a consciousness. And you know, for those of you that kind of understand that we're evolving as a species, so there's a certain conscious level that we would never have tolerated here. You know, I don't know a lot about you guys, but you know, how many people here are doctors? A doctor? What kind of doctor? Okay, great. Anybody else?
I'm a PhD doctor.
PhD doctor, okay. So I think that's great, but like most people that aren't even doctors or hold any type of degree or don't do a lot of studies would kind of get that taking blood out of someone that has a fever wouldn't be a good thing, right? Never. It would never be a good idea. It's the whole bloodletting thing, you know, it's like cutting holes into your skull to let demons out. Right? I mean, literally, there was a time in our history, it wasn't all that long ago, where they thought that that was going to help people. So, think about this. In 100 years from now, what will we be doing right now? Will we be looking back at what we're doing now that's going to look completely barbaric? Probably a lot. Just food for thought. So the big shift that I'd like to make is to look at cancer as two different separate deals, because you've got cancer, the disease, and then you have cancer, the tumor formation, because they're not the same deal. Cancer, the tumor formation, is a symptom within the cancer cascade. We'll get into that in a little bit. And this is Robin. Robin is...
I have the receipt for whoever...
She has a receipt for someone. Anybody that paid $5 just here on the table? Great.
I didn't put it in my pocket.
I'd like to recognize Robin for doing a lot of the food prep, and she is kind of the commando in charge of the kitchen here. And
That's a good new title for her. It is. Because she was here earlier class. She was here in the class earlier.
awesome. Well, she has a great command of the kitchen.
Thank you.
And she's been a wonderful help for a lot of the classes, and I'd just like to recognize her. She's doing a great job. So thank you. Okay, so I'm glad that this slide's coming up before you guys are fed, because I've got some visuals. So to kind of illustrate this point of cancer, the disease versus the tumor formation, let's look at, it all has to do with emotions. Emotions tend to be what drive a lot of our decisions. And what we focus on, which are the things that give us the most emotional charge. So if we were to have waste management go on strike, and all of our trash and food starts to accumulate in the front of our houses, and as a result of that, we start getting a lot of rats that start to come in and start to feed on all the food and the waste product. And they're doing that because they're doing their job, they're cleaning up all the mess there. Would we have a rat problem or a trash problem? Anybody? What's the problem? Because it's more emotional to you. But what's really the problem? Trash. So if the trash wasn't there, would the rats be there?
No.
So what's the real problem?
Trash.
Okay, so it's a trash problem. So cancer, the disease, versus cancer, the tumor formation. If you didn't have cancer, the disease, would you necessarily have a tumor formation? Because if there was a tumor formation without cancer, the disease, you would be assuming that there's some sort of spontaneous eruption of a tumor without any underlying causality. And that doesn't happen in life. There is no spontaneous eruption of disease in the human body. There is a progression every single time. We grow it. We fester it. It's a consequence of factors that lead up to that event. So what about genetics?